Hey there, YouTube friends. So I'm here at my desk in my lab doing a very different kind of video for you because I want to give you a couple of fascinating facts from a recent book that I just read called Sapiens. So I thought I would do this video, and I might try more of them if you like them. You gotta let me know in the comments, where I share some fascinating little nuggets of information, fascinating facts from the books I'm reading so that you can benefit without having to read the book yourself. Of course, if you want to, you should. It's a great book. But what I really wanted to share about this book was what makes us human. Specifically, what are unique human facts? What's the history of humanity? What drives us? What I realized is that I'm constantly talking about human behavior, human activity, decoding people, but I very rarely talk about what's shaped us through history, the history of humanity. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 fascinating facts that I learned from Sapiens about how our history drives our current behavior. Fascinating fact number 1, why humans are cruel. Why do humans torture each other, start wars, attack their neighbors? Harari argues it's because fundamentally, as humans, we're underdogs. So here's how this works. He shared this story, and I never thought about it this way, that for many, many, many years, humans were solidly in the middle of the food chain. So we had lions and tigers and bears, oh my, above us on the food chain, and we often hunted small animals, small predators. And so we were right in the middle of the pack. And then humans got very inventive, and they invented weapons. They started using fire and new hunting techniques to be able to attack the top of the food chain. And very quickly, over a span of a few years, they suddenly propelled themselves at the very top of the food chain. And what happened is this was too fast. These lions and tigers and bears, oh my, had been at the top of the food chain, had a lot of confidence. They knew their place at the top. But when humans suddenly took over this place in the top of the food chain, they were insecure about it. And so because they were insecure about it, they had all this anxiety. That makes them cruel and attacking. Specifically, love this quote, "Millions of years of dominion have filled top predators with self-confidence. Sapiens, by contrast, are more like Banana Republic dictators. Having so recently been one of the underdogs of the savannah, we are full of fears and anxieties over our position, which makes us doubly cruel and dangerous. Many historical calamities, from deadly wars to ecological catastrophes, have resulted from this over-hasty jump." So what's the takeaway for our modern day society? I think it explains a lot about imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, social anxiety, and that we constantly have this feeling that we don't belong or that we've taken more than we deserve. And so when you see the rise of imposter syndrome, where people feel like they don't deserve their success or they're unworthy of their accolades, it might be because we have this historical a moment in history that happened where we jumped the food chain too quickly. And we're always worried that someone's going to take it from us. So here's the takeaway for this fact. And it's that, yes, we are underdogs, but that fuels us for more grit and working harder. And just because we might feel like we don't deserve our success or our worth, the more that we can understand that we truly deserve it and not try to abuse others in the process. We don't have to be cruel to get ahead or stay on top. That actually fuels us with something positive as opposed to something negative. Fascinating fact number 2, why humans are entrepreneurial. So if you were to ask a 5th grader, what was the greatest discovery for a caveman, they would probably say fire. And humans discovering fire was a game changer, right? Helped us cook, helped us stay warm, helped give us light. But fire also did something else. As we got smarter and smarter and started using fire in new and ingenious ways, fire also sparked, get it, spark, an entrepreneurial spirit. So I love this quote. Harari explains it great. "A carefully managed fire could turn impassable barren thickets into prime grasslands teeming with game. In addition, once the fire died down, Stone Age entrepreneurs could walk through the smoking remains and harvest charcoaled animals, nuts, and tubers." So I love this idea that we actually began to use fire in all kinds of ingenious ways to help us survive better, to help us conquer impassable areas of grassland or thickets. And I think that the takeaway for us today here is that all we need is a spark. That as humans, if you give us one new resource or one change or one new thing, we can take that and do so many things with it. If you look at computers, we got the internet and computers for the first time, and slowly humans have taken technology and taken it in ways we never dreamed of before, from medical technology to new environmental changes to healthcare. And so I think that if we just have a spark of something really smart and interesting, that can help us take it so much farther. So if you're feeling like you're kind of in a rut in your life, remember those Stone Age entrepreneurs. You just need to find a little bit of fire and then do something unique and different with it. So as long as we have a spark, we can always have a bigger fire. Fascinating fact number 3, why humans speak. One of my favorite parts of Sapiens was hearing about the gossip theory. So the gossip theory states that the reason that humans developed language was not to talk logistics, it was not to share sweet nothings with each other, it was actually to be able to gossip. And their argument for this is that in a band of 50 individuals or 50 cavemen, that's over 1,225 one-on-one relationships, and even more of these complex intertwined relationships. And that in order to cooperate and be able to hunt together and raise children together and grow things together, we would have to be able to gossip, because gossip helps us maintain our social networks. Now, I always used to think, and I was taught, that gossip was bad. You should never gossip. But what the gossip theory researchers have shown is that actually gossip is an essential way for us to communicate and maintain our networks. The takeaway here, though, is motive. So I think that not all gossip is created equal, and it got me thinking very differently about gossip in relationships. There is mean-spirited gossip, where you're talking behind someone's back, you are malicious about someone, you're trying to undermine someone. That's the bad kind of gossip. But the good kind of gossip, and what we're actually supposed to be doing, it's the whole reason we have language, is to be able to understand our relationships. So talking to other people in your life about your relationships, how to make them better, how to understand someone, what makes someone tick, how to predict their behavior, that is actually a really important part of being human. It's essential, and it's actually good. And so when I think about what we do at the Science People, when we're constantly talking about behavior and how our relationships work, I used to worry that that was a nice to have. It was kind of a luxury to talk about the people in our lives and our relationships and making them better. But now I fundamentally believe that optimizing our behavior, understanding our networks and our relationships, that's a need to have. Fascinating fact number 4, why we shape our worlds. There was a story in Sapiens that made me a little bit sad. I was amazed, but I was sad. And it has to do with sheep. So if I were to say to you, what do you think of when you think of a sheep? Maybe you would mention docile, or that they're followers, right? Like followers like sheep. Maybe you'd mention simple or a little dumb. Well, what Harari argues is that sheep were not always that way. We made sheep that way. So here's what happened. Imagine you were a nomad back in the day, and you had to hunt for your food. And so you found these wild sheep. They tasted lovely. You could use their wool for food. And so you slowly began to hunt them. And as you were hunting, you realized that you would follow these herds. And if you hunted selectively, you could keep the herd growing big even as you hunted. So you would never kill a fertile sheep, a sheep that could have more sheep. You would never kill a young lamb. You would only try to get the ones on the side of the herd, the sick sheep, so that the herd could keep growing. Over time, they were able to sort of control the herds and limit the number of sheep that were in them to be a little bit less adventurous. Specifically, they were able to contain the herds. And Harari finishes the story this way. Finally, people began to make a more careful selection among the sheep in order to tailor them to human needs. The most aggressive rams, those that showed the greatest resistance to human control, were slaughtered first. So were the skinniest and most inquisitive females. Shepherds are not fond of sheep whose curiosity takes them far from the herd. With each passing generation, the sheep became fatter, more submissive, and less curious. Voila! Mary had a little lamb, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. Womp womp. What's the takeaway for our modern life here? I think that the important thing for us to realize is that we shape our worlds. We shape every person that we talk to. We shape every person that we interact with. And we have a really great impact on the world around us. So much so that even over decades and decades of sheep hunting, we changed the nature of sheep remaining in the world. And so I believe that we can use this power for good. Instead of changing the entire nature of an animal, thinking about what kind of impact do we want to have? How do we want to shape and change the people in our life in positive ways? How can we infect people with more positivity? So I think that this story holds a lot of power because it shows us how much power we have, and that if we want to, we can use that power for good and not evil. Fascinating fact number 5, why future thinking is new. I always used to believe that humans were naturally future-minded. We love making goals, we love making plans, we love thinking about our future, our long-term, 5, 10 years down the line. But what Sapiens showed me is actually future thinking is something that's developed. And the reason for this is because of something very unexpected. The reason we are future thinkers is because of farming. So the agricultural revolution had a huge impact on how humans thought. So as nomads, hunters and gatherers would get up in the morning, they would look for game, they would follow the water, they would look at the weather, and they were much more spontaneous and flexible. As soon as the agricultural revolution hit, humans became suddenly tied to their land, tied to seasons, and they had to be future-minded in order to survive. So in agriculture, there are dry spells, there are pests, there are bad crops, and you don't always have a harvest. You have to begin to save food for the winter. You have to have surplus. This was not a way that humans normally thought before. And farming, even though it created a huge abundance of food, in a way it actually created it limited our thinking. And Harari explains it this way about sort of the mentality the agricultural revolution brought in. Although there was enough food for today, next week, and even next month, farmers had to worry about next year and the year after that. Concern about the future was rooted not only in seasonal cycles of production, but also in the fundamental uncertainty of agriculture. Peasants were obliged to produce more than they consumed so that they could build up reserves. So I didn't realize, the big takeaway here, is I didn't realize that farming, although it was a wonderful boom for us, the agricultural revolution was wonderful for humans, it also changed the way that we think. And so I think that this is why today we have this sudden move back for mindfulness. We have people who are obsessed with meditation. We have people who are trying to actually stay much more present as opposed to always future-minded. Because maybe, just maybe, our natural state as humans is to be more present, to be more mindful and in the moment. And future thinking is something that's evolved to keep us safe, to help us survive. So what I would say is, the future is great. Long-term planning is good. We have to do it. But the present is pretty good too. And honoring and finding what's good in our present moment can help us be even better humans. I have to share one more bonus fact here. It was my favorite story in the entire book, and this has to do with when Spaniards first arrived in Mexico in the New World. And what happened was the Spaniards' hygiene was very different than native Mexicans' hygiene. In fact, the natives' hygiene was much far superior to the Spaniards' hygiene. And so when the Spaniards first arrived, they were assigned natives to walk around with them carrying incense. And the Spaniards wrote in their literature that this was a mark of the divine. They thought this was a great honor, that they were assigned people to walk around carrying incense. But actually, and we know this because of sources from the native Mexican primary sources, that actually they were assigned those incense holders because they smelled so bad. So they had to walk around carrying incense around them because the smell, the stench was so terrible that when they walked around, people couldn't handle how bad the smell was. So I thought this was the best story because it shows just how our own lens of how we look at the world is how we see things. And so if we think someone carrying incense is a divine honor, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that maybe you just stink really badly. So I hope that you like these 5 fascinating facts. I highly recommend that you check out the book Sapiens. And if you like these kind of book reviews, let me know in the comments. And please suggest other books you'd like me to do it for, where I'll pull out some interesting nuggets and information for you on the book so that we can better understand who we are as humans, what makes us tick, and what drives us. Thanks so much.